This is a Man on Fire audiobook, written by HNRY ZMRN, for the man becoming who he was meant to be. Listen, reflect, rise. The first look always seems innocent. A glance, a flicker, a harmless moment that whispers, what if? But every man who's ever fallen knows. It starts with a look. You're not planning to cheat. You're just looking. But that look is the seed. And once it's planted, it grows in silence. Temptation never screams. It whispers. It doesn't rush you. It studies you. It learns what makes you curious, what makes you crave, what makes you forget what you already have. The wandering eyes aren't about lust. They're about focus. Because the moment your attention drifts, your loyalty follows. And when your loyalty drifts, your foundation starts to crack. Every man is tested not by what he looks at, but by what he refuses to. This is where the war begins. Not in the bedroom, but in the glance. Not in the act, but in the thought. So guard your eyes. Because the battle for your soul doesn't start with her smile, it starts with your stare. And maybe that's why so many men fall quietly. Not because they're evil, but because they underestimate the power of attention. They think a look means nothing until it costs them everything. One look can shift a man's loyalty. One look can open a door he was never meant to walk through. And when he does, he realizes too late, it wasn't her beauty that destroyed him. It was his blindness to his own weakness. Every man faces a silent war, the kind no one sees. It's not fought on battlefields, it's fought in moments. Moments when no one's watching. Moments where a decision defines your direction. You can conquer the world and still lose yourself in a look. You can preach loyalty and still wrestle with temptation, because being faithful isn't about what you feel, it's about what you fight. Every man has two voices inside him. One says, it's just a glance. The other says, that's how it starts. And the difference between those two voices is the difference between a king and a coward. The weak man lets curiosity lead him into chaos. The strong man kills the spark before it becomes a fire. Discipline isn't about being blind. It's about seeing clearly enough to walk away. This isn't about shame. It's about awareness. Because you can't fight what you refuse to see. And the truth is, every man who fell saw it coming. He just thought he was stronger than the moment. Every fall starts with a trigger. It's not always her. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's the craving to feel wanted again. You start chasing validation instead of vision. You start scrolling instead of building. And before you know it, your eyes aren't just wandering. Your soul is drifting too. The trigger doesn't announce itself. It hides behind innocent moments. A text that felt harmless. A conversation that just flowed. A memory that didn't need revisiting. Every man thinks he can control where it goes. But temptation is never satisfied with almost. It wants all of you, your mind, your focus, your identity. And when you give in, even a little, you teach your weakness how to win. That's why a disciplined man doesn't wait for danger. He recognizes the trigger before it fires. Because by the time you feel the heat, the fire's already spreading. Distance doesn't start in miles. It starts in moments. Moments where your heart begins to pull away from what used to matter. You stop noticing her voice. You stop listening to her dreams. You start comparing her to someone who's not even in your life. And little by little, your loyalty turns into silence. You start living in your head instead of your home. You start imagining instead of engaging. A wandering eye eventually creates a wandering heart. And a man who stops being present eventually becomes a stranger in his own relationship. The scariest part isn't losing her. It's losing yourself while pretending everything's fine. Because the truth is, when you stop showing up, you've already started leaving. Love doesn't die overnight. It starves quietly when you stop feeding it with attention, respect, and presence. The fantasy always looks better than the reality. That's why it works. It paints a perfect picture of what's missing in your life, and then convinces you that she's the answer. You start imagining what it would be like, how it would feel. You start rewriting your story in your head, giving yourself a role that was never meant for you. Fantasy is the enemy of gratitude. It makes you blind to what you already have. It turns blessings into burdens and creates desire out of nothing. What you don't realize is you're not in love with her. You're in love with the idea of being wanted again. You're addicted to the attention, the thrill of being noticed, the illusion of connection without responsibility. The fantasy doesn't offer love, it offers escape. But every escape comes with a cost, and the price is always higher than the pleasure. Every man eventually faces the mirror, not the one on the wall, the one in his mind. The reflection that doesn't lie. You can hide from her. You can hide from friends. But you can't hide from the truth that stares back at you. The mirror doesn't care about excuses. It doesn't care how tired you are or how she made you feel. It only shows what's real. That reflections ask questions you don't want to answer. What happened to your fire? When did you stop being proud of who you see? When did you trade strength for comfort and conviction for convenience? Every man wants to be admired, but few want to be accountable. And that's why most men never change. They break promises, then build stories to protect their ego. But a real man doesn't flinch at the mirror. He looks, he learns, and he rebuilds. The drift never happens overnight. It's quiet, subtle, unnoticed. It starts when you stop checking in, when the small things no longer matter, when your conversations get shorter and your excuses get longer. You start living side by side instead of face to face. You stop arguing, not because there's peace, but because there's nothing left worth fighting for. Drifting feels harmless until you realize how far you've gone. You don't wake up one day in another woman's arms. You wake up one day and realize you've been emotionally gone for months. And that's the trap. The drift is comfort in disguise. It makes you believe distance is freedom when really it's decay. If you don't fight for connection, you'll end up fighting loneliness. Because every man who drifts eventually drowns in his own silence. Every weak decision is protected by a strong excuse. That's how men convince themselves they're still in control. You tell yourself you're just talking. You tell yourself it doesn't mean anything. You tell yourself she understands you better. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not chasing connection, you're escaping conviction. Excuses are comfort for the guilty. They build walls so you don't have to face what's real. They make sin look reasonable and weakness look justified. Every man becomes a salesman when his conscience speaks. He starts pitching stories to himself, stories that make him feel right even when he knows he's wrong. The truth doesn't need to be sold. Only lies do. And the longer you sell yourself the lie, the harder it becomes to buy back your integrity. Excuses don't protect you. They expose you. They tell the world what kind of man you've decided to be. The slip never feels like a fall when it's happening. It feels like relief, like release, like something you deserved after all that stress. That's how sin sells itself, as something earned instead of something stolen. You tell yourself, it's just this once, but once becomes again, and again becomes who you are when no one's watching. The slip doesn't destroy you immediately. It destroys your peace first. You start hiding your phone. You start changing your tone. You start living two lives that will eventually collide. Guilt becomes your new alarm clock. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep, but because you're carrying secrets heavier than rest. And the worst part, you still convince yourself you're a good man, as long as no one finds out. But the truth is, you're already found out by the one that matters most. You. The distance grows quietly. You start talking less, touching less, feeling less. You used to rush home. Now you take your time. You start finding peace in places that never cared about you. The distance isn't measured in space. It's measured in honesty. Every lie adds another mile between you and who you love. You stop saying, I love you as often because you're no longer sure what it means. You stop praying because you don't like the silence that answers back. The distance grows when you protect your sin more than your soul, when you defend your weakness instead of defeating it, when you start lying to keep the life that's killing you. And by the time you realize it, the gap feels too wide to cross. You look at her, and you don't see the woman you lost. You see the man you've become. And that's what hurts most. Every man has a wake-up call. It's that moment when the noise stops and you finally hear your own conscience again. For some, it's losing her. For others, it's looking in the mirror and realizing the man staring back is a stranger. You can fake smiles. You can fake success. But you can't fake peace. And when peace leaves, it takes your confidence with it. That's when you realize the truth. You didn't fall because she was special. You fell because you stopped being disciplined. Because you let comfort whisper louder than conviction. A man doesn't wake up strong, he wakes up tired of being weak, and that's when the fire starts to return. The moment he decides the pain of change is worth more than the comfort of staying broken. That's what the wake-up call is. Case, the reminder that you're still the man God built you to be, if you're man enough to rebuild. Rebuilding isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about becoming who you were meant to be. You can't undo the past, but you can outgrow it. You can decide that your pain won't be wasted, that it'll become the foundation for your strength. Every man who rebuilds must first face what broke him. You can't heal from what you hide. You can't lead while you're still lying. Rebuilding means taking responsibility without running. It means apologizing without excuses. It means showing consistency when no one claps for you. The road back is slow. There are no shortcuts. Every day becomes a test of patience, humility, and purpose. But somewhere along that road, you realize something powerful. You're not rebuilding what you lost. You're building what you never had. A man who can be trusted by his own reflection. Every comeback gets tested. You don't rebuild without resistance. The moment you start walking right, something will try to pull you back. The same temptations will return. The same eyes, the same lies, the same easy exits. They come back not to break you, but to confirm if you've really changed. The test isn't about the temptation, it's about your reaction. It's the moment where the old you wants control, but the new you stands up and says, "Not this time." Every man who rebuilds will be tempted to return to the place that broke him. But wisdom isn't forgetting what happened. It's remembering without repeating. If you can stare down the same weakness and still choose strength, you've passed the test. Because that's when discipline stops being effort and becomes identity. The return isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you're not who you used to be. Real redemption doesn't make noise. It shows up quietly, in discipline, in consistency, in peace. You don't need to announce your change. Let your actions do that. Let your habits speak for you. Let your peace become the loudest thing about you. When a man returns to purpose, he stops chasing validation. He stops needing applause. Because peace feels better than attention. The return is simple. Do what's right, even when no one notices. Stay loyal, even when no one's watching. Because a real man doesn't need a crowd. He just needs conviction. Every mistake carries a message, but only the humble can hear it. You can't grow without failure. You can't lead without scars. The lesson isn't in what broke you. It's in what it built inside you. Pain is a teacher most men try to skip. But if you ignore it, you repeat it. And if you face it, you rise from it. The man who learns from pain becomes dangerous because he can't be manipulated by pleasure anymore. He knows what it costs to lose himself. He knows that nothing easy is ever worth the regret that follows. The lesson of the fall is simple. Be the man you needed when you were weak. The man who chooses discipline over desire, conviction over comfort, purpose over pleasure. Because once you've learned, you don't just move different, you live different. Redemption isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. It's about knowing what almost destroyed you and still choosing to walk forward anyway. You're not defined by the fall, you're defined by the fight that followed it. Because only men who've been broken truly understand the value of strength. Redemption is a daily choice. It's getting up when you'd rather disappear. It's staying humble when pride calls your name. It's loving when trust still feels fragile. You don't have to erase your past to start again. You just have to outgrow it. Let your actions rewrite the story that your mistakes once told. And when you finally stand on the other side of your pain, you'll realize God never punished you. He prepared you. He stripped away the weakness so you could remember who you are. That's redemption. Not a restart, but a return to the man you were meant to be. Every man has wandered. Maybe not with his hands, but with his thoughts, his attention, his curiosity. The goal isn't to be flawless, it's to be focused, because what you stare at, you steer toward. If your eyes are fixed on distraction, your life will follow destruction. But if your eyes are fixed on purpose, your life will follow power. The eyes that once wandered can learn to look forward again. The same man who fell can become the man who leads. The difference isn't perfection, it's direction. So, lift your head, Look forward. Stay loyal to your vision, your calling, and your commitment, because the world doesn't need perfect men. It needs men who refuse to keep looking back. Men who've been through the fire and now walk in it, eyes forward, heart steady, and purpose unshaken.